Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle without hurry. Allow the day to loosen a little without needing to fall away all at once. There is nowhere to reach tonight and nothing to finish before rest can begin. Only rain on a Highland platform, the warm shelter of a night train, and the gentle rhythm of a journey already waiting to carry you through the dark. You do not need to hold onto anything tightly now. The evening will move at its own untroubled pace. One step, one doorway, one small settling in after another. If your thoughts drift, that is all right. The train will keep its course. When you are ready, we begin. Tonight's story is called A Gentle Night Train Through the Rainy Highlands. By the time you reach the station, the rain has already settled into the night. It falls steadily over the sloped roof, the platform lamps, and the dark line of the waiting train, softening every edge that is not held close by light. Beyond the station, the highlands have already withdrawn into shadow. What remains visible is near at hand. Wet stone, pale mist beyond the tracks, a row of glowing carriage windows, and the long, quiet shape of the train resting under the rain. The station is small, and the hour has drawn it inward. No crowd presses around you. No voices rise sharply through the damp air. A porter's trolley stands beneath the shelter near the far end of the platform, half in shadow, and somewhere beyond it, a door closes with a muted wooden sound. Nearer still, rain taps upon the roof above, runs from its edge in silver threads, and gathers in darkened seams between the paving stones underfoot. You pause for a moment beneath the station lamp. Its glow rests on the wet platform in a pale oval, catching the shine on your shoes, the edge of your case, and the rain-dark surface of the train beside you. The carriage windows hold a warmer light. Through one, you can see only the suggestion of upholstered seats and polished wood trim. Through another, a lamp reflection doubles itself in the glass and trembles faintly with the weather. The night smells of wet stone, cool metal, and distant smoke carried low in the rain. Beneath those outdoor scents comes another, quieter promise from the train itself. Warmed wood, dry fabric, lamp oil, and the enclosed air of compartments already sheltered from the weather. Even before you board, you can feel the difference waiting there. You begin to walk along the platform. The paving glistens under the lamps, each stone darkened by rain and shining more brightly where the light falls full upon it. Water gathers along the track edge and slips away in narrow runs. Your footsteps sound soft here, absorbed by the dampness of the night. Beside you, the train stands patient, and still, its painted sides holding blurred reflections of lamps, roof supports, and moving rain. Now and then you pass a carriage door, each with its brass handle catching a muted line of gold. Most are already closed. One stands open ahead, with a small lamp burning just inside the doorway. The metal step below it is dark with moisture at the outer edge, though the interior beyond appears warm and dry. A little further along the platform, a station sign shows pale lettering under the rain, but the weather has softened it enough that you read it only as shape and familiarity rather than as something that needs to be named. It is enough to be here, with the train waiting and the rain falling steadily around it. When you reach the open door, you stop. The handrail is cool beneath your fingers. Rain beads along the edge of the step and gathers at the metal seam before slipping off into the darkness below. Inside, the sound changes even before you fully enter. The rain remains close, but the carriage walls and roof gather it differently, turning the wider wash of weather into something softer and more contained. You place one foot on the step and climb aboard. At once the warmth of the interior meets you. It is not hot, only gently held, the kind of warmth that has been building quietly in enclosed air while lamps burn low and windows keep out the night. The scent changes too. Wet stone and rain fall behind. Here there is polished wood, wool upholstery, brass fittings faintly warmed by the lamp, and the dry comfort of a compartment prepared for travel. For a moment, you remain just inside the doorway. The corridor is narrow and softly lit, with paneled walls that hold a subdued sheen beneath the lamps. A line of compartment doors runs along one side, some closed, one or two standing partly open. The floor beneath your feet answers more quietly than the platform did, and the whole carriage seems to rest on the edge of movement, not yet begun, but ready. You move along the corridor until you come to your compartment. Its door slides back with a gentle, well-kept motion. Inside, the space is small but complete. A cushioned seat runs beneath the window, its fabric dark and smooth in the low light. Above it, a luggage rack waits empty, except for a folded blanket laid across one end. The wood around the window has been polished by years of use, and the brass fittings at the corners catch the lamp in restrained points of gold. A small shade above the seat keeps the light close and warm, leaving the upper edges of the compartment in softer shadow. Rain threads down the outside of the glass in fine, uneven lines. Beyond it, the platform lamps blur and lengthen. The station roof appears only in fragments where the light catches its edge. Further out lies darkness, pale mist, and the suggestion of open country not yet visible in full. You step inside and place your case beside the seat. The compartment receives the small movement without disturbance. The seat cushion gives gently when you lower yourself onto it. The fabric is cool at first through your coat, then slowly warmer as you settle. You place your gloves beside you for a moment, then fold them once and set them on the ledge below the window. Your coat loosens at the collar. The lamp above reflects faintly in the rain-streaked glass, so that for a moment the interior and exterior seem to rest together on the same surface. Nothing needs to be done quickly here. You are aboard. You have reached the place from which the night will carry you the rest of the way. For a little while, the train remains still. That stillness has its own life. Somewhere further along the carriage, a door closes with a softened click. From another compartment comes the faintest shift of fabric or case being set down. Beneath it all lies the quiet-held tension of the train waiting at the platform. Its weight settled on the rails, its lamps lit, its compartments occupied, and its direction already chosen. You turn your gaze back to the window. Rain continues to mark the glass. A station lamp outside glows through it in a blurred oval, bright at the center and feathered at the edges. Beyond that, the platform stretches away in fragments. A post, a section of roof, the darker line of a bench, then little more than shadow and weather. Every shape outside appears softened by water and distance. Inside, the compartment feels smaller now that you have settled into it, though not in a confining way. The seat beneath you, the blanket above, the polished frame of the window, the lamp with its shaded glow, the case near your feet. It is enough. You lift the folded blanket from the rack and lay it across your knees. The wool is dry, softly textured, and a little heavier than it first appears. You smooth one edge with your hand and let it rest there. The action is slight, but it deepens the sense of being properly in place. Rain remains outside. Warmth remains within. Between the two lies the carriage wall, the lamp, the glass, and the quiet of this small traveling room. Then, almost without warning, the train gives its first gentle sign of moving. Not a jolt, only a subtle drawing forward, as though the whole carriage has taken a breath and begun to release it. The movement passes lightly through the seat beneath you and the window at your side. Outside, the blurred station lamp shifts a fraction. Then comes another small pull, steadier this time, and the weight of the train begins to move along the rails. You remain where you are and let the motion gather. The platform does not vanish all at once. It begins to slide instead. The nearest post drifts past the window, then the lamp, then a darker section of wall beneath the station roof. Reflections tremble across the rain-marked glass, merging one moment and separating the next. The carriage gives a low, smooth sway as the wheels find their line. The sound changes with the movement. At first, there is only the soft, rolling weight of the train easing itself forward. Then the rails begin to speak more clearly beneath you. A measured, repeating rhythm, muted by the carriage and the blanket across your knees, yet distinct enough to feel before you fully hear it. The station remains near for a few moments more, its lights passing one by one through rain and reflection. Then even those begin to thin. You watch the last of the platform slide away. One lamp lingers longer than the others, reflected twice in the wet glass before it falls behind. A signal light shows briefly as a small red point softened by rain. The edge of the roof gives way to open dark. The station, which had held the whole world a few moments ago, becomes only a dimness behind the train. Ahead, the journey opens into darkness. You do not need to see far into it yet. It is enough to feel the compartment holding you, the blanket resting across your knees, the lamp keeping its warm circle above the seat, and the rain still tracing the glass as the train carries you out into the Highland night. The rhythm beneath the carriage grows steadier. The platform is gone now. The station lamps have fallen behind. Outside the window, there is only darkness, rain, and the occasional faint suggestion of open land beyond the glass. Inside, the compartment has already begun to take on the deeper calm of a place in motion. With the station left behind, and the rails now carrying you onward through the rainy dark, the night journey settles into its course. The train carries you further into the night with a steadier rhythm now that the station has fallen behind. At first, the motion remains delicate, as though the carriage is still deciding how best to settle itself upon the rails. Then, little by little, the movement becomes more even. The soft sway beneath the seat finds its own measure. The repeated sound below the floor grows clearer without ever becoming sharp. Rain continues to travel down the window in fine, uneven lines, and beyond it the dark of the Highlands begins to gather more fully around the train. You remain where you are, letting the journey come to you. There is no need to lean forward or look for anything in particular. The compartment holds you easily now. The blanket rests across your knees with its quiet weight. The lamp above the seat keeps its small circle of warmth. The polished wood around the window gives back a low glow, and every now and then that glow trembles faintly in the glass as the carriage shifts over the line. Outside, the world appears only in passing fragments. A pale post rises and slips away. A fence line shows briefly, then breaks apart in the rain. For a moment, there is the suggestion of a bank beside the track, dark and close. Then open country again, though no more clearly seen than before. The glass keeps much of the night at a distance. Rain and reflection soften whatever lies beyond, so that the land seems less of you than a presence traveling beside you in shadow. You turn your gaze to the lamp reflected in the window. Its shape appears doubled there, one flame within the carriage, one softer, and more uncertain in the darkened glass. Between the two, the rain continues to mark its slanting paths downward. Some drops gather and join before slipping lower. Others hold for a moment, bright at the edge where the light catches them, then disappear into the wider shine across the pane. The carriage sways a little more fully as the line begins to run clear beneath it. The motion is not enough to disturb the stillness of the compartment. It only deepens the sense of being carried. The seat answers gently under your weight. The blanket shifts by the smallest amount as the train moves through a longer curve. Somewhere beyond the wall of the compartment, a fitting gives a faint, brief rattle and falls silent again. You draw the blanket a little higher. The wool moves easily beneath your hand, its surface soft and dry. You smooth it once across your lap and let it settle where it will. The simple adjustment makes the compartment feel smaller in the best way, more complete around you. There is the seat beneath you, the blanket across you, the lamp above, and the dark window at your side. Nothing more is needed. For a while, the journey offers only its rhythm. The rails speak beneath the carriage in a repeated pattern that is easy to follow without counting. Now and then the sound changes slightly where the train passes over a junction or a seam in the line, then returns to its gentler course. The difference is slight, more a shift in texture than in volume. It passes quickly, leaving the steadier motion to gather again around it. Beyond the glass, a few distant lights appear and disappear. They are not near enough to define houses or roads, only small points glimmering through rain somewhere out on the dark land. One lingers for a moment beside the train, then falls away behind it. Another shines lower, perhaps near water or a trackside path, before the angle of the carriage takes it out of sight. Most of the time, there is nothing at all beyond the pane, but rain, darkness, and the vague suggestion of open ground moving silently beside the line. Inside, the compartment continues to hold its own warmth. The air is dry enough that the scent of rain remains outside, though now, and then the memory of it seems to return when the glass cools beside your shoulder. Nearer at hand are wool, polished wood, and the softened trace of lamp oil. The brass fitting near the window catches a dim point of gold, then loses it again as the carriage rocks. Even the corners of the compartment, left in softer shadow, feel familiar already. You rest one hand lightly on the ledge beneath the window. The wood is smooth where years of travelers have touched it. It is cooler near the glass and warmer nearer the seat. Through your fingertips, you can feel the faintest vibration from the train's movement, constant but subdued, as though the whole carriage is quietly speaking through wood, fabric, and frame. The line bends again. This time, the train leans a little more noticeably, though still with gentleness. The darkness outside shifts with it. For a moment, the window holds the blurred shape of a hillside rising close, rain streaking across its shadowed form. Then it falls away, and the glass gives back only the lamp's reflection and the downward travel of water. You let your head rest more comfortably against the seat. The cushion receives the movement without resistance. The compartment seems to narrow around you once more, not by size, but by attention. There is less reason now to follow the world outside. The train has left the station far enough behind that departure itself no longer matters. What remains is the journey in its quieter state. Steady rails, low lamp, softened rain, and the sense of distance opening without needing to be measured. Somewhere beyond the compartment door, a muted sound passes along the carriage. Perhaps another traveler shifting in a seat further down. Perhaps a door eased gently in the corridor. It is too faint to draw the mind outward for long. The sound comes and goes, and the rhythm beneath the floor takes its place again almost at once. You return your gaze to the dark glass. The rain is finer now than when you first boarded, or perhaps it only seems so from within the carriage. The drops no longer strike in quick, distinct traces. Instead, they gather into thinner moving threads, gliding down the pane, and catching the lamp in brief lines of brightness before dissolving into shadow again. The train passes over a section of track where the sound changes for a few moments. The rhythm grows firmer, more marked beneath you, and the carriage gives a slightly different sway. Then the line smooths out once more, and the movement returns to its earlier gentleness. Such changes do not disturb the calm, they deepen it. Each variation reminds you that the train is traveling through real country, over bridges, bends, cuttings, and long wet miles, while you remain warm within its shelter. Outside, the Highlands continue unseen except in hints. A darker mass beyond the glass may be rising ground. A brief widening of blackness may mark open water or a broad stretch of moor. Once, for only a breath, a small cluster of lights appears far off through the rain, then slips away before it can become anything definite. The night keeps its distance, and that distance feels right. You shift a little deeper into the corner of the seat. The blanket holds its warmth. The lamp above remains steady. The compartment door, the luggage rack, the ledge beneath the window, the case near your feet, each thing stays where it should, quiet and unchanging, while the only real motion comes from the train itself and the rain tracing the glass. The repetition begins to loosen the edges of thought, not by asking anything of you, only by continuing as it is. The rails beneath, the faint sway of the carriage, the low contained light, the dark country beyond the pane. These things do not vary enough to call for attention, nor stay so still that the mind feels held too tightly. They leave room for it to drift. For a while, you simply listen. The carriage body gives a soft answer to the track. The wheels continue their measured passage below. Rain marks the window. Somewhere high in the compartment, the slightest tremor passes through a fitting and is gone. Beneath it all lies the feeling of forward motion, calm and unbroken. When you look out again, the glass reflects more of the compartment than the land beyond it. Your own outline is only barely suggested there, softened by the lamp and the rain. The seat, the ledge, and the warm shade above the window appear more clearly than the country outside. It is as though the night has drawn close around the train and left this small interior world floating within it. The train knows the way through the dark. The rails are already laid. The country is already there beyond the rain, whether seen clearly or not. All that is required of you is to remain where you are while the journey carries on. The wool has grown warmer now. The seat has taken your shape. The lamp keeps its familiar reach above you, and the window holds rain, darkness, and reflection together in one quiet surface. The compartment no longer feels like a place you entered only a little while ago. It has already become the place where you are. Outside, another faint light slips by and vanishes. Then there is only the dark again, and the gentle travel of rain across the glass. The rails beneath the carriage continue in their settled rhythm. And within that rhythm, with the warmth of the compartment around you, and the rainy Highlands passing unseen beyond the window, the night journey begins to carry you more deeply into its calm. The train runs more freely now that the station, and its last scattered lights have fallen away behind you. The movement beneath the carriage has settled into a smoother line. The earlier sense of departure has faded. What remains is simpler and deeper. The steady draw of the train through the rainy dark, the measured rhythm under the floor, and the small enclosed warmth of the compartment set apart from the night beyond the glass. You remain in your corner of the seat and let the journey continue around you. The blanket rests more heavily now across your knees. The lamp above keeps its quiet circle over the wood trim, the ledge beneath the window, and the edge of the seat. Rain still marks the glass, though the drops seem finer now, their paths longer and more fluid as they gather, divide, and slip downward in the reflected light. Outside, the Highlands appear only in passing suggestions. A dark slope rises close to the line for a moment, then falls away. A stretch of open ground follows, barely visible except where the rain catches a faint outside light and shows the land in a softer gray before it disappears again. Sometimes the darkness beyond the pane seems deep and level, as though the train is crossing a wide reach of moor. At other times, it gathers itself into heavier shapes that might be hillside, rock, or the edge of a cutting beside the track. The window holds both worlds at once. Within it, the lamp glows in reflection, warm and steady. Outside it, the rain continues its downward travel. and beyond that the country remains half seen and half imagined. Now and then the reflections shift with the motion of the carriage, so that for a moment the inside and outside seem to overlap. The curve of the lamp shade, the line of the seat, the blurred suggestion of wet land beyond. The train takes a broad curve. You feel it first through the seat beneath you and the ledge under your hand. The carriage leans gently, not enough to disturb the stillness, only enough to remind you that the rails are bending through real ground beyond the window. The movement holds for a little while, then eases back. Rain continues across the glass. The rhythm beneath the floor resumes its earlier balance, steady and untroubled. For a few moments, the sound deepens. Perhaps the train is passing over a bridge or over a section of track more exposed to the weather. The change is subtle but clear. The rails speak more fully beneath you, and the carriage gives a slightly firmer answer through wood, fabric, and frame. Then the tone softens once more, and the journey returns to its quieter measure. You glance out again. Far off through rain and darkness, a few lights appear in a loose cluster. They are too distant to show much more than their presence, a handful of small warm points against the blackness. One shines a little higher than the rest, then all of them drift away as the train continues on. After that, there is only the rain-dark glass and the faint suggestion of land beyond it. Inside, the compartment remains unchanged. The case stands near your feet. The blanket holds its shape across your knees. The brass near the window catches the lamp and lets it go. The wood around the frame has the same soft sheen as before. In the corner of the glass, the reflection of the lamp trembles slightly when the carriage shifts, then steadies again. You let your head rest more fully against the seat back. There is no need now to follow every passing shape outside. The train is deep enough into the journey that the world beyond the window has become less a series of places and more a changing edge of dark, rain, and distance. What matters more is the repetition. The rails beneath, the slight sway of the carriage, the warm lamp above, the wool across your lap. Then, for a brief while, another light appears closer to the line. At first, it is only a pale glow through the rain. Then it resolves itself into a single lamp standing beside a short platform, no more than a small halt in the dark. The train passes it without slowing. In that instant, you see little more than the wet edge of the platform, the lamp, and the darker shape of a shelter behind it. Then it is gone, slipping backwards into the rain almost before it has fully taken shape. The passing of it leaves the night deeper than before. No more lights follow at once. The glass darkens again. The lamp within the compartment returns to being the clearest light you can see, its reflection resting over the rain-marked pane while the land outside withdraws into shadow. Your hand remains lightly on the window ledge. Through it, you can feel the life of the train in a quiet way. The fine vibration of the frame, the steadier pulse beneath the wheels, the slight shifts that pass through the carriage body and are absorbed again by the seat, the blanket, and the enclosed air. None of it asks for attention. It simply continues. Somewhere beyond the compartment wall, a softened sound moves through the train and fades. Perhaps another door settling more firmly in its frame. Perhaps a faint step in the corridor. The sound is brief and distant, and once it is gone, the rails take over again, carrying the whole carriage back into its more familiar rhythm. Outside, the rain seems lighter for a while. The streaks on the glass grow thinner, and between them the dark country appears a little more open. A strip of water lies briefly beside the line, black and smooth, reflecting almost nothing. It might be a stream, a flooded ditch, or the edge of a lock hidden in the dark. The train passes it too quickly for certainty, and the view closes again into shadow. You draw one corner of the blanket in by a small measure. The wool shifts and settles. The movement is slight, but it makes the compartment feel more enclosed around you, more complete. The seat has already begun to take your shape. The air has grown warmer within the small space. Even the rhythm beneath the carriage seems less external now, as though it belongs as much to the compartment as to the rails beyond it. For a while, you simply listen. The repeated passage of the wheels beneath the floor. The faint answering creak from somewhere in the carriage frame. The soft movement of rain across the glass. The low, contained hum of the train carrying on through the night. The repetition loosens thought without asking it to disappear. You do not need to follow the route. You do not need to measure distance. The Highlands can remain unseen beyond the pain as long as they like. The train knows the line. The rails continue forward whether watched or not. All you are asked to do is remain where you are while the night carries you further through rain and darkness. When you look out once more, the window offers mostly reflection. The lamp, the edge of the seat, a softened impression of your own outline, and behind all of it, the moving dark. Now and then a fence post or a pale trackside marker shows itself and vanishes. Once the shadow of rising ground passes close to the line and is gone. Then there is only the rhythm again and the carriage swaying gently through it. The compartment has become its own small world. The seat beneath you, the blanket across your knees, the polished wood around the glass, the lamp above, the case near your feet, the rain beyond the window. Nothing in it needs changing. Outside, one last distant light appears and slips away behind the train. Then the country returns to darkness, and the rails continue in their settled measure beneath you. With the land now seen only in glimpses, the rain soft upon the glass, and the carriage moving steadily through the Highland night, the journey draws you further into its quiet middle stretch. Outside the window, the night begins to give less of itself away. The rain still travels down the glass, and now and then a darker shape passes beyond it. But the land no longer offers even the brief suggestions it gave before. What lies outside has withdrawn into distance and weather. The lamp within the compartment has become the clearer light, and its reflection now rests over most of the pane, warm against the darker world beyond. You settle a little further into the seat. The cushion has long since given up its first coolness. It holds your weight easily now, receiving your shoulders, back, and head without resistance. The blanket across your knees feels warmer too, its folds softening where they rest. One hand lies loose upon it, and the other remains near the ledge below the glass, where the faint life of the train can still be felt through the wood. For a while, the motion beneath you becomes the whole journey. The rails continue in their measured pattern below the floor. The carriage sways with a movement so steady that it is hardly noticed at first, only absorbed little by little into the body's sense of rest. A gentler rise and fall passes through the frame now, and then as the train follows the line through long curves and subtle changes in level. Somewhere within the carriage, a fitting gives the slightest answering tremor, then returns to silence. You no longer look out to see where you are. You look only because the dark glass holds the rain and the lamp together so quietly. The drops slide down in fine paths, gathering and breaking apart. The reflection of the shade above the seat drifts slightly with the movement of the train, then settles again. Beyond it all lies the outer dark, present, but no longer asking to be read. The compartment has grown more familiar with every mile. The case near your feet remains where you set it. The brass fitting beside the window still catches a dim point of gold when the carriage shifts. The wood around the frame keeps its low sheen beneath the lamp. Nothing changes quickly here. That sameness is part of the comfort. The train passes over a rougher section of track. At once the rhythm beneath you grows firmer, more marked for a few moments. The carriage gives a different kind of sway, not abrupt, only more noticeable. The vibration reaches the ledge beneath your hand and passes through the seat frame before softening again. Then the line smooths out, and the earlier motion returns, quieter than before because of the brief change that came before it. You breathe with it without needing to think about doing so. The repeated movement, the low sound beneath the floor, the dry warmth held inside the compartment, the rain tracing the pane, together they ask for nothing but stillness. There is no need to follow the route now. No need to imagine what lies beyond the dark slopes and rain-washed ground outside. The train continues whether you attend to it closely or not. From somewhere beyond the compartment door comes a muted sound, and then no more. Perhaps a step in the corridor. Perhaps a latch settling more firmly as the carriage moves. The sound is too small to disturb the calm. It only reminds you for a moment that the train stretches on beyond your own compartment, carrying its other dim lamps and sleeping seats through the same rain-dark country. Then even that thought falls away. What remains nearest is the blanket, the lamp, the seat, and the repeated language of the rails beneath you. You let your head rest more fully back. The fabric at the seat gives softly behind you. The edge of the blanket rises and falls by the smallest amount with the motion of the train. One corner presses a little more warmly against your hand. The compartment has taken on that familiar feeling certain enclosed spaces acquire after a little time has passed. Not merely occupied, but inhabited, as though the air itself has settled around you and decided to keep you company for the rest of the journey. The rain on the window grows finer. It no longer shows itself in heavier drops, so often as in thin gliding lines that catch the lamp in passing. Between them, the glass reflects more of the compartment than it reveals of the country outside. The seat back, the shade above, the faint outline of your own shoulder, all appear in softened form against the dark beyond. Now and then a pale marker slips by near the line and vanishes so quickly that it barely breaks the spell of sameness. The train leans through another long curve. Again, you feel it first in the body rather than the mind. The seat shifts its pressure a little. The ledge beneath your fingers carries the motion in a thin, steady pulse. The reflection in the window moves by a fraction, and the rain lines seem briefly slanted before returning to their straighter paths. Then the carriage settles again into its old rhythm. You draw one breath more deeply and let it go. The train continues. The rails continue. The rain continues. There is comfort in that repetition. For a while, the journey seems made entirely of small returning things. The same low glow from the lamp, the same wool across your knees, the same soft responses from wood and metal when the track changes beneath the wheels, the same dark pane beside you, holding reflection and weather together in one shifting surface. No single part of it asks to be noticed for long. That is what makes it restful. When you glance out again, the country gives almost nothing back. A passing embankment, perhaps. A heavier darkness that might be hillside. Then only rain, reflection, and the moving blackness beyond the train. It is enough. The compartment, in its low light, has become the truer landscape now. You rest your fingers a little more loosely on the ledge. The wood remains smooth and faintly cool near the glass. A quiet vibration continues through it, constant enough now to feel like part of the compartment itself rather than part of the machinery below. The carriage seems less like a thing traveling through the night than a small world suspended within it, carrying its warmth, lamp, fabric, and silence forward through the rain. Another slight shift passes under the floor, then fades. The train answers it and carries on. The rails return at once to their settled measure. Somewhere far along the carriage, too faint to place, comes a brief creak and then no more. Around you the air remains dry and still, touched only by warmth from the lamp and the nearness of wool, wood, and glass. Thought begins to loosen in the same way the rain loosens upon the pane. Not vanishing, not stopping, simply no longer holding its shape so tightly. You do not need to keep track of how long you have been traveling, or how much farther the line still runs through the dark. The train knows, the rails know. The journey carries on perfectly well without being measured. You remain as you are, held by the corner of the seat and the quiet steadiness of motion. The blanket has grown warmer. The lamp reflection trembles faintly in the glass. The rain keeps slipping downward. The carriage continues to sway in its calm, repeating way. By now, the outer world has receded, so far that the train is felt more than seen, and the deeper middle of the night journey settles around you with every mile. After a time, the stillness of the compartment begins to ask for a small change. Not because anything is wrong, only because the body has rested in one position long enough to welcome a gentle shift. You draw the blanket back by a little and let it rest folded across the seat beside you. The air beyond it feels cooler against your hands and knees, though still warm compared with the rain-dark world outside the glass. For a moment, you remain where you are, listening to the train as it continues through the night in the same steady measure as before. Then you lean forward and rise. The movement is slow and unforced. At once, the sway of the carriage feels different through your body than it did from the seat. What had been a softened rocking beneath you now travels more clearly through your feet and legs, though still with gentleness. One hand rests lightly against the window ledge for balance, and the polished wood carries the same faint vibration it held before, only easier to notice while standing. The compartment remains behind you in its small circle of lamp glow. The seat still holds the shape you left in it. The folded blanket lies where you set it. The glass keeps its rain-marked surface and its warm reflection. Nothing about the room feels disturbed by your rising. It simply waits as calm and complete as before. You slide the compartment door open and step into the corridor. At once, the air feels slightly cooler, though not cold. The corridor lamps are turned lower than the one in your compartment, and their light falls in narrower stretches along the paneled wall and the carpeted floor. On one side runs the line of compartment doors, each closed or nearly closed now, their polished handles catching only the smallest glimmer when the carriage shifts. On the other side, the windows are darker, the rain beyond them less broken by reflection than at your own seat. The train feels larger here. In the compartment, the journey had narrowed to lamp, blanket, glass, and seat. In the corridor, the carriage reveals itself as part of something longer and more loosely inhabited. Somewhere ahead, another lamp burns near the end of the carriage. Somewhere behind, a door stands fast in its frame. Yet no voices rise, no footsteps approach. The whole train seems to be traveling in a shared hush, each compartment carrying its own low light and settled quiet. You begin to walk along the corridor. Your hand trails lightly against the wood at shoulder height now, and then, not from need, but from habit as the carriage moves beneath you. The floor gives a little more directly to the rails than the cushioned seat did. There is a gentler give through the soles of your feet, a soft, shifting answer from the frame whenever the line bends or the wheels pass over a change in track. As you move, you pass doors drawn nearly shut against their own small worlds. Beneath one, a narrow seam of light shows along the floor. Another reflects nothing at all, already dark within. In a polished brass plate near the handle of the next, the corridor lamp glows as a blurred point and slides away again when you pass. Nothing asks to be looked at for long. Each thing belongs to the same low, traveling stillness. At the far end of the carriage, a glass door leads to the vestibule. Its upper pane is dark with rain, and night beyond, though a little of the lamp behind you still reaches the edge of the frame. The lower half is paneled, the wood darker here from use, and the slightly cooler air near the carriage end. You place your hand against the latch and ease the door open enough to step through. The vestibule is narrower than the corridor, and more directly alive with the movement of the train. Here the floor seems to carry the rails upward more clearly. Not harshly, only more plainly. The repeated motion rises through wood, metal, and frame before passing into your feet, and then away again. A small lamp above the door burns low, giving just enough light to catch the edge of the handrail, the metal fittings near the outer door, and the rain threading down the end window. You rest one hand on the rail and stand for a moment without moving further. The glass at the end of the carriage is darker than the side window in your compartment. It gives back less of the interior and more of the night outside, though even here the weather softens almost everything into suggestion. Rain slides down the pane in narrow, wandering lines. Beyond it, the track behind the train appears only in brief hints when the carriage sways or the land opens enough to show a paler strip in the dark. For a few moments, the train feels stronger here. The rails speak more clearly beneath the vestibule floor. The carriage body answers them with a low, contained tremor. When the train enters a curve, the motion reaches your hand through the rail and your feet through the boards at the same time, carrying the whole small space with it before easing back again. Then the line straightens and the steadier rhythm returns. Outside, there is almost nothing to see except rain and darkness. Now and then the edge of the track catches a little light from the train itself and shows a fleeting silver line before it is gone. A bank beside the line rises briefly into shape, then slips away behind the rain. Once, for only an instant, the faintest distant light appears far back across the wet blackness and vanishes again. Most of the time, the window holds only moving dark. You remain there a little longer. The handrail is cool beneath your fingers. The small lamp overhead leaves the corners of the vestibule in shadow. Somewhere below, between the repeated rail sounds, comes the deeper hum of the train carrying on through the night, wheel after wheel taking the same long line through the Highlands, while the rain continues over roof, glass, and outer metal skin. Then the train passes over a rougher stretch. The change is brief, but more distinct here than it was from the seat. The rhythm beneath the floor grows firmer, the vestibule gives a slightly stronger sway, and the rain at the end window trembles in its downward paths. Then the movement smooths once more, and the carriage settles back into its familiar measure as though nothing had happened at all. You draw one slow breath and let it go. The cooler air at the end of the carriage, the darker glass, the more direct feel of the train beneath your feet, all of it belongs to the same journey, only from another angle. Yet after a little while, the thought of your compartment begins to return with quiet certainty. The seat, the blanket, the lamp, the warmer side window with its softer reflections. You ease the vestibule door closed behind you and turn back into the corridor. At once the light seems warmer again, though still subdued. The doors along the passage remain as before, each one keeping its own silence. The floor underfoot feels gentler now that the direct vibration of the vestibule is behind you. You make your way back at the same unhurried pace, one hand brushing the paneled wall from time to time as the carriage sways. When you reach your compartment, you slide the door open and step inside. The change is immediate and deeply familiar. The lamp above the seat gathers the space around you in a soft circle of gold. The cushion waits where you left it, the blanket folded back upon it, the case near your feet, the side window still carrying rain and reflection together on one darkened pane. What had felt warm before now feels warmer by contrast, and more sheltered too. You sit again. The seat receives you more softly than before, as though it has been keeping your place. You draw the blanket back across your knees and smooth it once with your hand. The wool settles with a quiet weight. The side window shows the lamp reflection once more, trembling faintly with the motion of the train, while the rain outside continues in its fine downward paths. For a little while, you notice the difference your brief walk has made. The compartment seems smaller now in the most comforting way. The lamp's reach feels closer. The blanket feels warmer. Even the sway of the carriage seems softer from the seat than it did while standing in the corridor or holding the rail in the vestibule. What had already been a refuge has become more fully so. You let your shoulders ease and your head rest back again. Outside the glass, the Highlands remain unseen except in dark suggestions beyond the rain. Inside, the compartment returns to being the whole of your world. Seat, blanket, wood, lamp, and the quiet repeated measure of the rails beneath you. And with that brief movement through the dim corridor and the darker end of the carriage now behind you, the warmth of your seat and the hush of the compartment gather around you once more. Back in your seat, the warmth of the compartment gathers around you again with very little effort. The blanket lies across your knees. The lamp above keeps its familiar reach over the wood trim, the ledge beneath the window, and the edge of the seat. Rain continues down the glass in fine lines, and the rails beneath the carriage return to their settled, repeating measure, as though your brief walk through the corridor has already been absorbed into the wider rhythm of the night. For a while, nothing changes. The train carries on through the Highlands with the same low sway, the same muted passage of wheels beneath the floor, the same rain-softened darkness beyond the pane. The compartment remains dry, warm, and enclosed. The seat receives your weight easily. The wool has kept its warmth. Even the reflection of the lamp in the glass seems to have found its place again. Then, after some time, the motion begins to alter. At first, the change is slight. The rhythm under the carriage loosens from its long, even run and grows a little more measured. The train is not yet slow, only less fully settled into speed than before. The sway shifts too. What had been a continuous movement through open dark now gathers itself into shorter, gentler changes as though the line ahead is narrowing into points, signals, or the edge of a station approached in rain. You do not need to look up at once to feel it. The rails tell you first. The sound beneath the floor changes in small stages, each one subtle enough to pass almost unnoticed until the next arrives. The carriage still moves smoothly, yet with less of the open running stretch it held a little earlier. The train seems to be drawing itself inward. When you turn your gaze back to the window, a light has appeared through the rain. It is pale at first, only a blurred glow in the dark. Then another joins it further along, lower and warmer, each one softened by water on the glass. The country beyond remains mostly unseen, but the lights hold steady enough to suggest some small place waiting by the line. A station, a halt, perhaps no more than a wet platform, and a sheltered lamp in the night. The train continues to ease its pace. The wheels pass now with a gentler spacing between sounds. The blanket across your knees shifts almost imperceptibly as the carriage settles further back from full speed. Outside, the lights take clearer shape through the rain. One stretches across the pane in a long, blurred oval. Another shines beneath what might be the edge of a roof or shelter. The darkness between them remains complete. Then the platform begins to appear. Not all at once, only in pieces as the carriage moves alongside it. A wet edge of stone, a post dark with rain, a bench beneath a lamp unoccupied, water slipping from the station roof in narrow silver threads. Somewhere behind those shapes, the faint suggestion of a wall or waiting room, though the weather softens it before the eye can hold it for long. The train comes to its halt with great gentleness. There is a final soft drawing back through the carriage, then a small settling of weight, and then stillness. Not complete stillness, for the rain continues and the lamp still burns above you, but the different stillness of a train at rest after running. Without the long rhythm of the rails beneath it, the compartment seems to listen to the weather more closely. Rain is clearer now. It touches the window in finer, separate traces. It falls beyond the glass onto the platform roof, the paving, and whatever lies further down the station in darkness. Water runs from the edge of the shelter outside and gathers somewhere below with a sound too soft to follow for long. The station itself remains nearly empty in appearance, its few lamps holding small circles of light against the rain. You remain where you are. The seat is warm. The blanket holds its soft weight over your knees. The lamp reflection rests in the window beside the blurred station lights outside. Nothing asks for movement. Nothing asks to be checked. The train has paused, and the pause itself feels like part of the same night rhythm rather than any interruption to it. For a little while, the platform stays beside you in quiet fragments. A signboard stands beyond the lamp, though the rain and the angle of the glass make the lettering no more than pale shapes. The bench remains empty. A darker doorway sits beneath the shelter further along, closed against the weather. Farther down the platform, one other lamp burns more faintly, leaving a longer stretch of shadow between it and the nearer light. No voices reach you. No hurried feet pass the window. If anyone else is awake on the train or on the platform, they remain part of the same low, rain-held silence. The station feels less like a destination than a brief island of light the train has touched in passing. Inside the compartment, the air remains unchanged. Wood, wool, lamp oil, dry upholstery. The scents have settled, so fully around you now that the rain outside seems all the cooler for being kept beyond the pane. You rest one hand a little more loosely on the blanket and feel the quiet difference between the carriage at rest and the carriage in motion. The stillness here has more weight to it, though no less comfort. After a time, the train gives the first small sign of moving again. It begins almost too gently to notice, a slight gathering beneath the seat, a shift in balance through the frame, the smallest pull forward. The platform lamp changes its place against the wet glass by no more than a fraction. Then comes another light draw along the rails, and the carriage answers with that familiar low movement returning through floor, seat, and window ledge. You remain still and let it happen. The bench outside begins to slide away. The signboard drifts past in pale, unreadable form. Water still falls from the roof edge, but now it passes the window and is gone. One lamp lingers beside the carriage for a few breaths longer than the rest, reflected and blurred together in the rain-marked glass. Then it too begins to fall behind. The train does not rush its departure. It moves with the same restraint with which it arrived, gathering itself by degrees. The wheels beneath the floor find their pattern again, first loosely, then with more certainty. The blanket shifts by the slightest amount as the carriage takes up its line. Outside, the small station recedes into rain, light, and shadow until it becomes no more than a soft glow left behind in the night. Soon there is only darkness at the window again. The platform has gone. The lamps have dropped away. What remains is the lamp within the compartment, reflected faintly in the glass, and the rain continuing its downward travel across the pane. Beyond that lies the Highland dark once more, open and unreadable. The rhythm under the carriage settles back into itself, not exactly as before, but deeper for having paused. The contrast of stillness has made the onward motion gentler. The rails resume their repeated passage beneath you. The sway returns. The compartment seems to gather more closely around its own warmth and light now that the station is behind and the train is once again running through the rain-dark country. You lean back a little more into the seat. The cushion receives you. The wool across your knees has kept its warmth. The lamp above remains low and steady. Outside, the rain has resumed its softer roll, no longer lit by platform lamps, but only by the glow within the carriage and the occasional faintness of the outer dark. The brief halt has already begun to feel distant. What stays with you is not the station itself, but the way the pause made the compartment feel more sheltered when the train moved on again. Warmer, smaller, more complete. The rails continue beneath you in their calm, repeating way. And with the little station left behind, the rain back to quiet lines upon the glass, and the journey once more carrying you through the Highland night, the onward movement feels softer than ever. The train carries on from the little station with a deeper steadiness now, as though the brief pause in the rain has only made the onward movement gentler when it returns. The rails beneath the carriage gather themselves back into their repeated measure. At first, the rhythm is only just reforming, each sound a little more spaced than before, each sway a little more deliberate. Then, mile by mile, the train settles fully into its running once again. The seat holds you easily. The blanket remains warm across your knees. The lamp above the window keeps its low, familiar circle over wood, fabric, and glass. Outside, the station lights have already gone. No pale platform edge remains beside the carriage. No shelter roof, no blurred signboard. The rain-dark pane has closed over them, and the Highland night has returned in full. What lies beyond the window is once again broad, indistinct, and largely unseen. The train moves through it without hurry, carrying its own warmth and light through country that gives very little of itself away. You remain still and let the difference settle. After the halt, the motion feels fuller than before, not faster, only more deeply established. The contrast of standing at a station in the rain has made the running line seem smoother now that it has resumed. The wheels beneath the floor pass in a calm, repeated pattern that no longer asks to be noticed in separate parts. The carriage sways, and your body answers without effort, as though it has already learned the movement well enough to rest inside it. The window shows mostly reflection now. The lamp shade above the seat appears in the glass as a warm, softened shape. The edge of the compartment seems to hover there too, the line of the seat back, the ledge beneath the pane, the suggestion of your own outline blurred by rain and low light. Beyond those inner reflections, the outer country remains a moving depth of darkness crossed by fine, wet lines on the glass. Now and then the land offers a little more. A heavier mass gathers beside the line and keeps pace for a few moments, perhaps hillside rising close to the track. Then it falls away. A broader stretch of darkness follows, flatter and more open, as though the train has entered moorland where rain and distance erase nearly every feature. Once there is the brief black sheen of water beside the line, catching almost no light at all before it is gone. It may be a flooded hollow, a stream, or the edge of a lock hidden in the dark. The train passes it too quickly for certainty. Inside, the compartment feels warmer by contrast with all that unseen country. The blanket has taken on the heat of your knees and hands. The seat no longer carries even the memory of coolness. The wood around the window gives back the lamp in a softened glow, and the brass fitting beside the glass catches a dim point of gold whenever the carriage leans through a curve. The air is dry, enclosed, and quietly familiar now, holding wool, upholstery, polished wood, and the faint trace of lamp oil close about you. You draw the blanket a little higher again. The motion is slight, yet it deepens the sense of enclosure at once. Wool settles higher across your lap. One fold presses a little more firmly at your side. The lamp remains just above your field of vision, warm without brightness. Outside, the rain continues down the pane in finer and finer lines, and the country remains no more than a suggestion beyond it. The train enters a longer run. There is a particular feeling to it when no station, curve, or crossing interrupts for a time. The rhythm beneath the carriage grows, so even that it seems less like a sequence of sounds than a continuous passage through the rails. The sway becomes less noticeable because it is always there. The body stops expecting variation. It simply lets the train carry it. For several minutes, nothing changes enough to call the mind outward. That sameness has its own quiet richness. The low hum beneath the repeated wheel passage, the faint answering life in the carriage frame, the rain slipping downward in its own separate rhythm over the pane, the lamp reflected softly in the glass, the blanket holding its warmth, the seat receiving weight without resistance. These things do not ask to be followed one by one. They begin to gather into one continuous experience of being carried. Outside, a single distant light appears. It is not near enough to belong to the line itself. It shines far off through the rain, small and steady for a few moments, perhaps from a lonely signal, a house set back on a hillside, or a lamp near some gate or track. The train passes on. The light lingers just long enough to be noticed, then slips away behind the rain-marked pane and is gone. After that, the dark seems deeper. Not emptier, simply broader. Whatever settlements the line may have passed earlier are behind you now, and what remains feels more open, more remote, more folded into the Highlands themselves. The train continues through it in its own sheltered way, carrying compartment after compartment, lamp after lamp, through country that remains itself in the rain. You let your head rest a little further back. The cushion yields softly. Your shoulders ease lower into the seat. One hand remains on the blanket, the other near the ledge, not holding anything, only resting where it has come to rest. Through the wood, there is still that fine, steady vibration from the train's passage, constant enough now to feel natural, like a second pulse beneath the quieter one of your own body. The rain grows lighter against the glass for a while, or perhaps it only seems lighter because the train has entered a stretch where the air is more open and the drops strike differently. The heavy threads break into finer drifting lines. Between them, the outer dark seems smoother and less troubled. The lamp reflection grows clearer. The compartment, seen in the pane, appears more complete than the world beyond it. The train follows another long curve. You feel the change first through the seat, then in the slight shifting pressure of the blanket across your knees. The reflection in the glass tilts by a fraction. The rain lines seem to lean, then straighten again. Somewhere low in the carriage frame, there comes a soft answering sound, wood or metal adjusting to the line, and then the movement settles once more into its earlier balance. Nothing about the curve disturbs the calm. It simply gives the rhythm another shape for a little while, then returns it. You breathe in the warmth of the compartment. The scent is almost too familiar to notice now. Wool, dry fabric, polished wood, the subdued note of the lamp. They have become part of the air itself. Beyond the glass, the rain-dark highlands remain almost entirely hidden, yet their presence is still felt in the remoteness of the line, in the breadth of the dark, in the way no near lights return for some time. The train seems to be running through a world made mostly of weather and distance. No station interrupts. No village gathers itself beside the line. No cluster of windows appears and keeps pace. There are only the briefest hints. A pale post, a darker edge of rising land, the suggestion of open water, then nothing but the moving dark again. The compartment becomes more and more the only visible world that matters. You no longer have any need to look outside for long. The rain on the pane is enough. The reflection is enough. The train beneath you is enough. For a while, you simply listen. The wheels continue their long, repeated passage below the floor. The carriage answers in low, occasional murmurs from wood and fitting. The rain marks the window in soft, descending lines. The lamp remains steady above. That repetition loosens thought by continuing unchanged. There is no need to know where along the line you are now. No need to imagine the map of the Highlands outside, or the distances between one hidden place and the next. The train keeps its course in the dark whether you measure it or not. It follows the rails through wet moor, beside black water, beneath unseen slopes, and onward into the deeper part of the night. You draw your hand a little more loosely across the blanket. The wool is warm enough now that the difference between cloth and body feels slight. The seat has fully taken your shape. Even the small motions of the train seem softer from within the corner of the compartment than they did earlier, absorbed into fabric, frame, and breath before they can become anything more distinct. When you glance at the window again, the reflection is nearly all you see. The lamp, the edge of the seat, the dark ledge below the pane, the softened outline of your shoulder, and behind all of it, rain and moving blackness. Now and then a paler line appears far below the level of the window and slides away, perhaps the edge of ballast, a rail glint, or water catching the train's own light for a moment. Then the dark closes over it again. The journey has reached a deeper stretch now. No pause lies near it. No platform waits beside it. No change is asked of you. There is only the long running line through remote wet country, the warmth of the compartment, and the repeating motion carrying you further into the Highlands while the night remains almost entirely unseen. You let that be enough. The rails continue in their calm measure beneath you. The carriage sways. The lamp reflection trembles faintly in the glass. The rain slips downward, and as the train runs on through the most remote-feeling part of the night, so far, the compartment gathers more closely around you, until being carried through darkness, rain, and distance feels less like traveling, and more like resting within motion itself. By now, the train has been running so long through the rainy dark that the compartment feels less like a place you entered earlier in the night and more like the only place there has ever been. No station has appeared for some time. No cluster of lights has gathered itself beside the line. The Highlands remain outside the glass as distance, weather, and shadow, offering almost nothing to the eye beyond rain and the faintest hints of moving dark. Inside, everything has grown more familiar than before. The lamp above the seat, the polished wood around the window, the blanket resting high across your knees, the softened edge of the seat beneath your shoulders and back. You settle a little deeper without needing to think about it. The cushion receives the full weight of you now. Your head rests back more completely. One hand lies loose upon the blanket, the other nearer the ledge below the pane, not holding anything, only resting where it has come to rest. The wool has warmed so fully that it feels less like something placed across you and more like part of the compartment itself, another layer of the small protected world the train has made around you. Outside, the window gives almost nothing back. Rain slips downward in fine, uneven lines. The lamp remains in reflection, warm and steady, clearer than anything beyond the glass. Now and then the pane darkens further as some larger shape passes beside the line, then opens again into a more level blackness. Whatever lies out there, moor, water, hillside, cutting, stays beyond clear seeing. The night keeps its own distance. The train continues in its long, repeated measure. The wheels pass beneath the floor with such steadiness now that no single part of the rhythm asks to be separated from the next. The carriage sways. The frame answers in small, quiet ways. A faint hum remains below everything, constant enough to feel less like a sound than a condition of the air. Once in a while, some fitting or panel gives the slightest murmur in response, then returns at once to stillness. For long stretches, nothing changes enough to draw the mind outward. That sameness is not empty. It is full of small returning comforts. The same warmth held in wool and upholstery. The same low circle from the lamp. The same smooth ledge beneath the window, faintly cool near the glass. The same rain on the pane, never exactly repeating itself, and yet always part of the same larger pattern. The same motion carrying everything forward without haste. You breathe and let the train continue. There is no need now to follow where it goes. No need to imagine the line through the Highlands in detail, or to wonder which unseen places lie beyond the rain-dark slopes and open ground. The route is already chosen. The wheels already know it. The carriage keeps to it with calm certainty, and that certainty is enough. When you glance at the pane again, the compartment appears more clearly there than the world outside. The lamp shade hangs in soft reflection. The edge of the seat lies beneath it. The faint outline of your shoulder is held in the darker part of the glass. Rain passes over all of it, joining the inside and outside for a moment before slipping lower and breaking the image apart again. Beyond that reflected world, there is only moving dark, deep enough that it no longer asks to be read as land at all. You let your fingers rest a little more loosely on the blanket. The wool gives under them with quiet warmth. Beneath that warmth, through fabric and seat and frame, there remains the faint life of the train. The continuing pulse of the rails, the long movement through curves and straight runs, the subtle rise and settle as the line passes under the wheels. Everything reaches you softened, as though the journey has been wrapped in the same calm that wraps the compartment. For a while, the rhythm feels almost cradle-like, not because it rocks you strongly, but because it never asks the body to resist it. The motion is always there, always returning, always small enough to be absorbed. The carriage leans a little, straightens, settles, the rails pass below. The blanket remains warm. The lamp stays low and unchanging. The rain continues its downward tracing across the pane. Then the train enters a longer curve. You feel it first in the pressure of the seat beneath you. The weight shifts by the smallest degree. The blanket changes its lay across your knees. The reflection in the glass tilts a fraction, and the rain lines seem briefly to slant more sharply before easing back again. Nothing in the curve feels abrupt. It only gives the motion a different shape for a little while, enough to remind you that the train is still winding through real ground beneath the darkness. The curve holds for some time. That, too, is soothing in its own way. The body settles into it just as it settled into the straighter run before it. The altered sway becomes familiar almost as soon as it is noticed. The hum beneath the floor remains. The rails continue. The rain keeps sliding downward. Then, gradually, the line straightens again, and the carriage returns to its older balance without ever having broken the calm. You remain as you are, letting the change pass through and away. The compartment seems even more complete after it. The seat and blanket gather close. The lamp keeps its small region of warmth and light. The dark pane beside you shows reflection, and weathered together, while the country beyond stays hidden enough that it may as well be made entirely of distance. Somewhere far through the train, too faint to place, a small sound comes and goes. It might be a distant carriage response to the track. It might be a latch settling or a quiet shift from a compartment further down. The sound is brief and soft, gone almost before it is fully heard. After it passes, the repeated measure beneath the floor seems deeper for its absence. You no longer need to look out for any sign of where you are. The journey has reached that part of the night where one dark mile is allowed to resemble the next. Rain and reflection are enough. Motion is enough. Warmth is enough. For a little while, you simply listen. The wheels continue their calm passage below. The carriage answers softly. The lamp remains steady. The rain slips downward. The repetition does not ask thought to stop. It only asks it to loosen. There is nothing to decide here, nothing to prepare for, no station approaching, no movement required. The train carries its compartments, lamps, blankets, sleeping travelers, and rain-marked windows forward through the Highlands, whether noticed closely or not. That long certainty seems to pass into the body after a time, until even wakefulness feels less like holding yourself alert and more like resting with your eyes still open. The pain grows darker still. A single pale marker appears very briefly near the line and is gone before it becomes anything more than a line. Then there is only the lamp again, held in reflection, and the rain passing in front of it. The outside world has almost entirely withdrawn. What remains is the compartment and the movement it floats within. You let your head rest more heavily back. The seat receives it. The cushion has long since molded itself to the shape of your shoulders. The blanket holds steady warmth. The ledge beneath your hand continues its faint, almost friendly vibration with the line. Everything feels arranged for rest without anyone needing to arrange it further. The journey goes on. You no longer have to follow it from moment to moment for it to carry you. The rails continue below the carriage in their even, unbroken pattern. The sway repeats. The rain traces the pain. The lamp remains low above the seat. The Highlands stay outside as darkness, distance, and unseen land. And as the train runs on through this late, inward stretch of the night, with almost nothing left to be seen beyond the glass, and nothing left to be done within the compartment, the whole journey seems to gather itself into one continuous feeling of warmth, motion, and shelter. The compartment remains as it has been for some time now, warm, enclosed, and so familiar that nothing within it seems to ask for separate notice unless you choose to give it. The blanket still rests high across your knees. The lamp above the seat keeps its steady, modest circle over the wood around the window and the edge of the cushion beneath you. The air has held the same quiet warmth for so long that it seems part of the compartment itself rather than something provided by lamp, fabric, and closed walls. Even the rain on the pane has become less an event than a continuing texture, always there, always changing in small ways, yet always recognizably the same. You remain settled where you are. The seat has long since received the full shape of your shoulders and back. One hand lies loose upon the blanket. The other rests nearer the ledge, close enough to feel the faint ongoing life of the train through wood and frame. Nothing in your body resists the movement now. The rails, the sway, and the softened hum beneath the floor have continued long enough that they no longer feel like something outside you. They feel like part of the night itself. For a while, there is almost nothing at the window but reflection. The lamp appears there in its softened duplicate. The edge of the seat and the darker line of the ledge sit beneath it. Rain passes over all of it in thin gliding paths, breaking the image and remaking it with every few inches of downward travel. Beyond that, the Highlands remain mostly withheld, a moving depth of blackness and weather. Then, after a long stretch of sameness, the outside gives a little more. Not much, only a small loosening of the dark. The rain on the pane seems finer for a time, and somewhere beyond it, the land opens just enough that the window no longer feels pressed against shadow. There is no clear view, only the sense of breadth returning, as though the train is running beside a wider reach of water or more where the night spreads out instead of rising close against the line. A single light appears very far off. It does not hold steady for long. It shines through the rain as a small pale point, then drifts behind the lamp's reflection and slips away before it can become anything more than a reminder that somewhere out in that wet distance, one isolated place still keeps a light burning. After it is gone, the dark resumes its wider shape, open and unreadable. The train feels especially sure of itself here, not faster, not stronger, simply settled into its own long certainty. The wheels beneath the carriage continue in their even repeated passage. The body of the train gives its low answer through frame and floor. The sway remains so measured that it no longer seems to begin and end. It is simply always there, carrying you without effort from one unseen mile to the next. That certainty passes into the compartment. The lamp does not waver. The blanket stays warm where it rests across your knees. The brass beside the pane catches one dim point of light and lets it go again. The wood around the glass keeps its low sheen. Everything inside remains exactly sufficient to itself, while the line runs on through the dark country beyond. You glance at the pane again and see another small sign from the railway outside. This time it is nearer than the distant light before, though visible only for a moment. A lone signal or trackside lamp standing apart in the rain, bright enough to hold its shape for a breath before the carriage passes it by. Its glow slips across the glass, briefly doubled by water, and reflection then falls behind and disappears into the wet blackness. After that, the window returns to its quieter state. Rain, reflection, moving dark. The outside world has not come back fully. It has only reminded you, in the gentlest possible way, that the train is still traveling through real country, still keeping to its line among moor, hillside, water, distance, and rain. Yet the compartment remains the truer center of the experience. The outer world can appear and vanish as it pleases. You do not need to follow it. You let your head remain where it is and feel the train carry you. The blanket has grown warm enough that the distinction between wool and body has softened. The seat seems to hold you without effort. The ledge beneath your hand continues its fine, quiet vibration. The lamp above, the pane beside you, the moving darkness beyond it, all have become so familiar now that each belongs naturally with the others. For a while, the line seems to run without interruption of any kind. No halt, no crossing, no visible station. Only the deep repeated passage of wheels below and the soft contained motion of the carriage around you. That unbroken running has its own restful quality. It removes the need to expect anything. There is no reason to listen for change, no need to keep account of how much farther the train may travel before dawn or destination. The journey continues perfectly well without being measured. The rain changes slightly on the pane again. It no longer forms even the finer threads it had a little earlier, but gathers into slower wandering lines, then breaks apart into smaller beads before joining again. The lamp catches their edges in tiny passing points. Behind them, the outer dark shows only the faintest unevenness now, and then, perhaps from rising ground or the edge of open water, though nothing remains long enough to claim a clear shape. Inside, the compartment asks for nothing. That is one of the gentlest things about it. Nothing has to be adjusted. Nothing has to be checked. The blanket stays where it is. The case remains near your feet. The lamp continues its quiet watch over the seat and pane. Even the air seems settled into its own pattern of warmth, wood, wool, and the faint trace of oil. You draw one slow breath and let it go. The train continues beneath you with the same calm assurance. For a few moments, the rhythm feels almost too even to hear as separate sound. It is simply there under everything else. The carriage gives a small answering creak from somewhere in its frame. The rain slips downward. The lamp reflection trembles once, then steadies. Your body remains where it is, held by fabric, warmth, and motion. Nothing in the night asks to be solved. The Highlands outside can stay hidden. The line can continue its long way through rain and darkness without giving more than the occasional sign of itself. The train already knows its course. That knowledge seems to belong not only to the engine and the rails, but to the whole moving body of the journey. Carriage after carriage, window after window, compartment after compartment, all carried onward in the same deep-running calm. You rest your fingers a little more loosely still. The ledge beneath them remains smooth, cool near the pane, and warmer nearer the seat. Through it comes the same subtle living pulse as before, quiet enough now to feel almost like a continuation of your own breathing. The seat holds your shoulders. The blanket holds your knees. The lamp keeps its small circle of light. Nothing needs to change for the calm to deepen. For a little while, the outside opens once more, though only by a fraction. A broader dark lies beside the line, and for a moment the rain seems to hang against a lighter emptiness beyond it, as though the train is passing a lock edge, open moor, or valley stretch where the night air has more room within it. Then the shape closes again. The glass returns to rain, reflection, and shadow. The brief widening only makes the compartment feel more complete. The world outside may open or close, show a solitary light or none at all, but inside the carriage the same warmth remains. The same low light, the same repeated movement, the same sense that the journey has gone on long enough now for distance itself to loosen and stop mattering. You no longer need to keep any account of the night. It is enough that the train is still running. The rails continue beneath the floor in their patient measure. The carriage sways. The rain marks the pane. The lamp keeps its place above the seat. The Highlands remain outside as weather, distance, and unseen land. And as the journey moves on through this long, late stretch, with only the faintest outward hints returning before fading again into rain and darkness, the compartment gathers around you once more as the truest part of the night, warm, steady, and complete in its motion. The compartment holds its familiar shape around you as the train continues through the rainy Highlands. And by now, that small-held world feels complete enough that nothing beyond it needs to be followed any longer. The blanket remains warm across your knees. The lamp above the seat keeps its low, steady circle over the window frame, the ledge, and the softened edge of the cushion beneath you. Rain continues down the pane in quiet, uneven paths. The wheels beneath the floor keep to their patient measure. Everything that has accompanied you through the night is still here, unchanged in any way that asks to be noticed. You rest more fully into the seat. Your shoulders have long since given up their last holding. Your head leans back without effort. One hand lies open upon the blanket, the other near the ledge, loose and still. The cushion has taken your weight, so completely that it no longer feels like something receiving you. It feels simply like the shape in which you now rest while the train moves on. Outside the glass, there is almost nothing to read. The pane is dark. The rain catches the lamp in passing threads. Reflection lies over most of it now, so that the warm interior of the compartment appears more clearly than the country beyond. The shade above the seat hovers there in softened form. The edge of the blanket and the line of the ledge rest beneath it. Beyond those reflected shapes, there is only moving blackness, deep enough that even the idea of landscape begins to loosen. The train continues whether watched or not. That is one of the gentlest things about it. The rails do not ask for attention in order to carry you forward. The carriage does not need to be followed from sway to sway or sound to sound in order to keep its calm way through the night. The journey goes on in its own sure measure beneath you, and because it does, there is nothing more required of you now than to remain where you are and let yourself be carried. For a while, the motion beneath the carriage seems to gather everything else into itself. The wheels pass below in their long, repeated pattern. The frame answers softly. The blanket keeps its warmth. The rain slips downward. The lamp remains low and unchanged. No one part needs to stand apart from the others. They belong together now, as though the whole compartment has settled into one continuous feeling of warmth, softness, and motion. You let your fingers rest more loosely still. The wool beneath them feels almost as warm as skin. The ledge near the window remains faintly cooler, though the difference is softer than it was earlier in the night. The air of the compartment has held its own dry warmth for So many miles that even the rain-dark pane seems less like a barrier against weather than another quiet surface within the same small world. Now, and then the train shifts in some small way. A longer curve may alter the pressure beneath your shoulders for a few moments. A softer stretch of track may change the texture of the rails below the floor. Somewhere within the carriage, a panel or fitting may give a brief low answer and fall quiet again. Yet none of these changes disturb the calm. They only pass through it, then dissolve back into the deeper steadiness of the run. You do not need to lift your head or look out to meet them. They come and go on their own. The compartment remains enough. The seat beneath you, the blanket across you, the lamp above, the rain-marked pane beside you, the calm, continuing language of the rails below. That is enough for the whole of the night. The outside world has withdrawn almost completely now. No platform waits beside the line. No station lamp shines through the rain. No village gathers itself in a cluster of distant windows. If there are hills, water, or open stretches of moor beyond the glass, they remain folded into darkness, present only as distance and weather. The Highlands continue around the train unseen, and the train continues through them with no need to explain where it is or how far it has yet to go. Time loosens in such a place. Without lights to mark passing stations, without pauses to divide one stretch from the next, the journey ceases to feel like a series of moments and becomes instead one long carrying movement through the night. The rails continue. The rain continues. The lamp remains where it is. The body rests where it has come to rest. There is no reason to keep account of anything more than that. You breathe in and let the breath go slowly. The air is warm with wool, wood, upholstery, and the softened trace of lamp oil. The scent has become so familiar that it is no longer separate from the feeling of the compartment itself. It belongs to the seat, the blanket, the pane, the ledge, the low circle of light, and the quiet held stillness inside the carriage while the train moves on beyond it. When you glance once more at the window, the reflection is nearly all that remains. The lamp, the edge of the seat, the darker line of the ledge, the softened impression of your own outline. Rain passing over all of it in fine descending marks. Beyond that, almost nothing. Only the knowledge of motion carried in darkness. You no longer need the outside world to give you shapes to follow. You no longer need a passing signal, a distant light, or the shadow of rising ground beside the line. The train has already made a whole world of its own around you, and within that world, all the necessary things are close at hand. Warmth, shelter, repetition, and the quiet certainty of continuing onward. For a long while, there is only the repeated cadence. The wheels below, the soft sway through the frame, the rain on the pane, the lamp above the seat, the blanket warmed across your knees. Your breathing no longer separate from the pace of the carriage, so much as resting easily within it. Nothing interrupts, nothing needs to. The journey has reached the point where it can carry itself. And because it can, you do not need to carry anything at all. The seat holds you. The blanket holds its warmth. The carriage holds its motion. The rails hold their line. The night holds everything beyond the glass. You remain where you are, with your head at rest, your hands loose, and the compartment gathered around you in its small circle of light and shelter. The rain continues to slip down the window in quiet paths. The dark beyond remains unreadable. The train keeps on through the Highlands without haste, without strain, and without needing to be watched. And in that warm compartment, with the lamp low above the seat, the blanket settled over you, the rain moving softly on the glass, and the rails carrying you onward through the unseen Highlands, the night journey comes to its quietest form. Not arrival, not ending, only rest within motion, deep enough that nothing more is needed.